is up, everybody? Chase here with Dolphins versus the World. And as always, I'm joined by our producer, Joel, and my co-host, Anthony. And how are you doing today, Anthony?
I'm doing well, a lot better now that there's a lot more settled in with our roster and everything going on. So yeah, it's a good day. We're a little over a week away from week one, so it's getting there. The excitement's building for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll get to everything. We'll get to the elephant in the room, but more so just big picture. Yeah, I'm definitely glad we've gotten through preseason here. It feels nice just to be on the other side of everything and the roster being finalized, and we know where we stand, sort of. I mean, obviously there still can be some changes. We could make a few changes, but for the most part, these are the guys who are going to be on the team for the majority of the season here. And I mean, we'll get right into it here. We'll talk about, like I said, the elephant in the room. What a crazy few days here with Jonathan Taylor. So much stuff has gone on. I feel like everyone has said something. You've seen so many things. I know I have, at least, but so I'll just say my thoughts quick, and then I'll let you go. Go say what you got to say. But yeah, just kind of logically, it just seemed like the two teams weren't going to come to a agreement here. Again, I said it a few episodes ago. If this was March, I could see it being a lot more realistic. But with it being this late in August already, I just found it hard to believe that something was going to get done. And then on top of that, something I didn't even consider, which is how just insane the Colts organization is. I mean, Ballard had a press conference today, and just some of the quotes, even from him, were jarring. And everyone knows Jim Irsay is just a character. I said it before. I think now definitively he is the worst owner now that Dan Snyder is out, and this kind of just proved it to me these last few weeks. But yeah, I still am fine with what we have. I don't think that not getting Taylor or Cook was going to make or break the season for the Dolphins. So I don't think that's too much of a difference, for me at least. But yeah, what do you have to say? We'll discuss it more. But yeah, let's hear your just quick initial gut reaction thoughts when everything happened.
It was upsetting from the standpoint of I 100% agree with you. I think the Dolphins are a very good team without Jonathan Taylor. And, a lot of the conversation now moving forward from Barry Jackson, Reason, who's been great with reporting stuff both publicly and privately. I've been chatting with him. The thought is that this is not the end of the story to the book. It's just the end of this chapter. I think from the Dolphins' perspective, it was an exciting. Anytime stuff like this happens, it's always exciting, right? Because you have these star players that want to play for you. And, you start thinking, even though the whole entire time, I know you had a very good pulse on this, but, we both we're kind of saying that, we're not sure if it's going to get done, you more so than me. But still, your mind wanders and you think, what if we were to get JT?
As always, from the Dolphins, I'll just say this real quick, and for everything, it's the hope that kills you, and especially this time.
Every year they reel me back in, every single year. But I think from the Dolphins, from Chris Grier, hats off to him. Just some of the stuff. I mean, coming out, like you said. I mean, first, if you think that Jalen Waddle straight up should be traded for Jonathan Taylor, you need to go get something checked because. Jonathan Taylor is incredible. Don't get me wrong, but he plays in this, the joke, in this economy with running backs the way it is. If you think that you're going to trade Jonathan Taylor for a premier wide receiver that is supposed to be the foundational piece of our team for the next 6-7 years on offense, even above Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is only going to be here maybe 3 more years. You're nuts. And to think that you were going to get a first plus Jalen Waddle. I also heard that, I talked to Reason and he said that it was a first and Devon A-Chain they would have taken. And both of those guys were off the board. And Chris Grier in his press conference, I know we're going to get to some of it, but he laughed at it. He wouldn't specifically say whether or not they wanted Jalen Waddle, but he just like shrugged it off and laughed and was like, all I can say is Jalen Waddle's off the table. I don't care who you're calling about. And it's true. Again, it's like a wide receiver is a very, very important piece of your offense. They have longer shelf lives. When you have a good quarterback, they're probably going to be used more. And so for the Colts to even put that out there, I think it's just like, it shows kind of unawareness to the situation of what's going on. Again, your owner says that if you were to leave the NFL tomorrow, no one would miss you. And then you think that a team's going to trade a first and Jalen Waddle. And what I was told, now that the dust settles, Barry Jackson reported this. Again, I've talked with people like Reason about it, who's phenomenal at giving inside information, both publicly and privately. They weren't even close on a trade offer. I was told that the Dolphins offered a 3rd-round pick, and they were putting players in there. They were giving like not Jalen Waddle. I was saying his name so much. Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson. They tried Emmanuel Ogbah. Apparently, with the contract, it's like, if we're going to pay Emmanuel Ogbah, we might as well pay Jonathan Taylor. But that's where the Dolphins and a lot of teams were. Destin Adams reported that no team would be even willing to give higher than a 3rd-round pick, let alone a first. So I don't know what the Colts are going to do. If I'm Jonathan Taylor, I'm going to fake an injury. That's my next move. I'm going to do what Xavier Howard did when he wanted a contract, to fake an ankle injury. I'm going to fake an injury, and it's just a bad move. So we'll see. And if you're the Colts too, Jonathan Taylor, again, and I've said this on the show, I've told you guys both on this show and privately beforehand, Jonathan Taylor does not want to be with the Colts. That's a whole nother aspect to it. And so now you have a player that does not want to play for you. Not only that, but the team acquiring him, if any team were to, doesn't get him now for the first 4 weeks. And that, shout out to Omar Kelly, who brought that up. I brought that up on the podcast because I had listened to him say that. But now on top of that, no team is ever going to give you nearly as much when it comes down to the trade deadline, which is, I think, Halloween. I think it's like around that time. No team's going to get you anything close. And so, again, he's going to fake an injury. You're not going to get Jonathan Taylor. He's going to be a cancer to the locker room. It was just horrible business by the Colts. I feel for Chris Ballard because, he's put in this situation where he doesn't want to get rid of him. But at the same time, I mean, yeah, it was just a weird situation. It's a shame we don't have him, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to cry over spilled milk.
Yeah. And that was sort of what I thought realistically his value would be, like a 3rd-round pick that you could do a conditional second. With it could go up to a conditional second. In addition, you throw in a player. I thought that would be a reasonable, like the highest that we would go. I don't see his value being higher than that because, one, he's not even under contract. Like, you have to sign him. Like, if he was under contract, then I could see
right. It's a different story.
Yeah, it's a different story, and his value being higher. But for him to be on you could just go get him next year if you really want him that bad. Especially, it does not seem that he's going to stay in the Colts. And look, and a thing that I'll say is just like, with people being like, they're not reasonable, like they should have taken the offer or whatever. Like, they could do whatever they want. Like, they can want to ruin their franchise, which they have done a tremendous job of doing here. They're going to do it. But for them, like, if the Dolphins were the Colts, what I would have wanted them to do is take whatever you can get. Like, take the best offer. You're not going anywhere anyways. When you're in a position like they are, where they have a rebuild ahead, strip it down to the bone. Like, get whatever assets you can now. So I don't understand what they did not trading him, not to the Dolphins, but just to anyone. It would have made sense. And then in addition to that, just I don't understand why you would put him on the shelf for 4 weeks. Like, even if he's not going to play, like, just take him off the list so you could at least field offers for another few weeks here. Like, maybe some running back will get hurt here within the next few weeks, and some team will decide that they want Jonathan Taylor. Like,
a team could still acquire him. The issue, though, what you're saying and what I was alluding to earlier is, like, if a team trades for him, it doesn't matter. Like, it can happen right now, but I don't get him now for the first 4 weeks. And I think that I agree with you. Like, the Colts can do whatever the heck they want. And to be honest with you, for someone of Jonathan Taylor's caliber and he doesn't necessarily, he wants to leave, but it's not because he just doesn't want to play for the Colts. It's because the owner screwed everything up.
Yeah.
I understand them wanting more than like a third in Jeff Wilson, because let's be honest, like I don't even want Jeff Wilson. I don't want Jeff Wilson on my own roster because we have Chris Brooks and Raheem Mostert's 31. So I understand that, but like again, you know, if I'm the Packers, it's like I could get him out of the division. I could get Aaron Jones or AJ Dillon and still get a third pick. And hey, let's just make it a conditional second, call it a day. And you didn't even do that. I'm not even saying it from a Dolphins point of view, but
it just does not make sense.
Yeah, but again, unfortunate if he does hit free agency next year. I know they have a good rapport between him, his agent, and the Dolphins. So there's going to be a lot of people available next year, but you know, the Colts could always franchise tag him. I just think that you're treading in dangerous water right there with just him making your life real difficult. But yeah, anyway, yeah, so it's over. So
that's the thing. It was an impressive job though, to just drive his value to an all-time low and then plant your feet in the ground and say, we're not going to take anything less than a first. And by all accounts, if it's true that they wanted Jalen Waddle, that is clearly what they were expecting, was a top 10 pick, which is just crazy after everything they did to just drive down his value.
Let's play a game real quick, Chase. Let me do this. I know this is a little off script. We didn't plan on this, but if you're a GM, okay, and let's just say for S and Gs, I'm trading Jalen Waddle to you. As a general manager, what do you think you're probably going to offer if I was like Jalen Waddle's on the trade block? What do you think you could get for Jalen Waddle? There's no wrong answer. I'm just
two firsts at minimum, and then whoever like the best young receiver on your team is would be what I would offer. Because he's still on a rookie contract, and I mean he's literally I'm sure everyone saw it, but he's a top 10 receiver in his first 2 years ever. Like he's with the AJ Green, I believe Antonio Brown was on the list. I don't have the list in front of me, but it was like a who's who of who are great receivers of this generation was all over the list, and he's among them.
Yeah, I was gonna say at least a first and a second, and then maybe a wide receiver. Okay. But point is, what I'm trying to say is it's at least, I think we could both agree, at least a first round pick you're going to get for Jalen Waddle. I think that's the minimum. So you're telling me you think your running back is worth minimum 2 first round picks? It's absolutely asinine, to be honest with you. I don't get it at all. But nonetheless, again, we don't need to keep talking about it, but you know, it's just a shame that we didn't get him. I would have liked him, but again, things happen when they happen, or things happen the way they happen for a reason. So now we move on to we can shift our focus now as a fan base to week 1.
Yeah, gladly. I will gladly do that. And so touch on that. We kind of touched about it a little, but Chris Grier did have his press conference today, and everyone was asking about Jonathan Taylor. With some of the questions asked, but I kind of we already covered that. So I want to talk about some of the other talking points. And first thing I'll say would be Jalen Waddle. You know, he said, we're not trading him under any circumstances. So that goes to show you what the Dolphins think of him. And that's great because that's stuff you want to see. You want to see competency out of your GM. And I definitely think Chris Grier is competent, but then kind of one of the points I found interesting was when he was talking about just contract extensions. He mentioned that they're not going to talk with Tua until after the season. I think that's totally logical. You know, everyone knows if he could stay healthy, then we'll come to the table and offer a more concrete long-term deal. But if he can't stay healthy, then we have a decision to make, or the decision would be made for us. But the Wilkins one, how he just said that we're not going to talk about it till after the season, I found that interesting. And this is speculation from me. Most of the time I am just speculating, but I think that's more so they said, hey, look, you think you're worth this number. That's fine. If you go out and have a season that proves you're worth that number, then we'll talk then. We'll offer you that, but you got to prove it. But if you don't have the season, the offer stands, and then, you know, it could get lower. So I think both teams both teams, I meant both parties, are kind of in the boat that, look, you got to go out and prove it here. And the Dolphins are saying, you know, we don't think you're worth it. We'd love to have you back here, but at a cheaper number. and Wilkins is saying, I'm going to go out and prove it. I'm going to go prove that I want to reset the market here. And then I also just liked what Wilkins said the other day, how no one wants to be a Dolphin more than him. He even mentioned the front desk person's name, which was awesome. You don't really see that out of guys, but he does want to be a Dolphin. So if there is something to be agreed upon, it's going to be agreed upon. It may not be this season, which I found surprising that they're just going to wait, because for both sides, it's a big gamble.
Yeah, man. So Reason went out publicly, and again, I use his name a lot because I think locally, guys who cover the Dolphins, aside from beat writers, he's the best as far as the best info, the best inside information. Again, his batting average is like 95%. I'm convinced his inside source is Chris Grier because, again, I'm joking. It obviously isn't, but he just has a really high batting average. And when all of this went down, someone commented on a post about Zach Sealer, because we talked about how last pod, I was shocked we got Zach Sealer for like 10 million base. That's incredible, because I was assuming he was probably going to get 14 on the open market, because you know how free agency can be. But he said very confidently, and he is not back from this, Christian Wilkins is seeking $24 million. That is what he's asking for right now. And two things can be true. I want Christian Wilkins on this team. I really think he's a team player, and I think he's going to handle this like a professional. But also at the same time, if you think you're worth $24 million, then you either need to get a new agent or you need to reevaluate, because $24 million would place him right with Quinnen Williams as the second highest paid defensive tackle in the NFL. And if Christian Wilkins thinks he's the second highest paid defensive tackle in the NFL, then again, there's something wrong there with as far as what he thinks his value is, or what his agent telling him his value is. Because I can say this confidently: the Dolphins offered him about $20 million. Okay, so if you're getting offered about $20 million, if you're Christian Wilkins, that's more than I would have offered. Okay, $20 million was what I would have maximum gotten to with incentives based off of his play, because that's double what Zach Sealer's making, and he's not twice as good. So if I, in my mind, if I know the Dolphins are offering that and he declined it, I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, because that's a very good offer, right? $20 million. I don't think he's worth $20 million. Okay, $20 million, we're getting into pass rushers, elite wide receivers. Like, that's a lot of change. And to give that to someone like Christian Wilkins, who, again, I love, it's not disrespecting him, but to pay that much money, or to ask for that much money, it's almost unreasonable. And I don't really know where this goes forward now, because the Dolphins aren't going to back off that unless Christian Wilkins goes out there and has the best season of a defensive tackle in the NFL, which that would be great for the Dolphins. But unless he does that, it's like you can't justify paying Christian Wilkins 24 when the guy next to him is making, think about this. You would be paying Christian Wilkins 2.4 times more than Zach Sealer. And you have to ask yourself, is he 2.4 times better? And I'll shift this over to you to ask you a question. I wonder, and I brought this question up with a couple people I talked to. I wonder how much Christian Wilkins, being an NFLPA representative, he's the NFLPA representative for the Miami Dolphins, which is why he was out there after the Dawood Davis injury. I wonder how much it factors in that he's looking at it like, I represent the NFLPA, and it would look bad if I wasn't trying to push the market forward. So, we'll see how this ends. We're definitely going to have him this year. Maybe next year if we franchise tag him. But yeah, I mean, that's a steep asking price for me. But he's a team player, and he'll do everything the right way.
Yeah, I have no question that he'll be a total professional this season. But yeah, that's interesting. And there's a lot of angles here that we don't even realize. I mean, he's at every event for them. Like, he is like the face of this team. He's doing the Dolphins Cancer Challenge. He represents the team so well. So I do think maybe there could be from him that he thinks he should get a little bit more because of all he does. And like you said, everyone wants to reset the market now, which is so strange to me. Like, for an extra like $2 million, just all these headaches. I mean, and we'll see. I mean, the way he sat out of camp, it's typically not good for anyone. D tackle is different. Obviously it's not like he's sitting out as a quarterback where the rust will show. But yeah, I mean, he's got to prove it. He's got to prove it because the numbers are what they are, and he's at current price that he's asking for. He's not worth. That's Aaron Donald money, and he is not Aaron Donald. And Quinnen Williams, he's not Quinnen Williams. But if he could go out and prove it this year, then more power to him. And I'm sure all Dolphins fans will be happy and love to see it. But yeah, some other interesting stuff that Grier kind of touched on in this presser. He just mentioned being happy with the state of the O-line. I found that interesting. I'm not happy with the state of the O-line. I think most fans are happy
Chris Grier's been happy with the state of this O-line since every year he's been there.
It's insane. And to be in a luxury position to think that this O-line is like developing as well, like long term, I don't know about that. To be cutting Ryan Hayes, I'm not saying that Ryan Hayes it was a crime to cut him, but we invested.
Not a fan of the move. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the move, to be honest with you.
I just don't
think more Elijah Higgins.
Yeah, same. They're draft picks, and we've wasted resources on them already. And this is no offense, Chris Brooks. We're Chris Brooks fans all preseason, but is a 6th or 7th round draft pick really worth more than Chris Brooks getting claimed somewhere else? I don't think that would have happened personally, but they did. So that's why they made the decisions they did. I'm sure they thought that they could get Elijah Higgins and Ryan Hayes on the practice squad, but they didn't. And here we stand. So now the draft class of 2023 is down to 2, and we are 4 months removed, about to be 5 months removed. That's not a great thing.
No, and again, there was different, there was different ways to go about it of people to cut that, again, I don't know the exact numbers of, who they kept and how many extra they had to keep. But I can tell you, I mean, there were ways to keep Elijah Higgins and Ryan Hayes on the roster because I've made a 53 with them on the roster before. And it was upsetting to me because it's not me claiming to know more than the coaches. It's just, for me, it made sense to keep Elijah Higgins over a Tyler Kroft because Elijah Higgins is a weapon. It doesn't necessarily matter. And I think that to ask a wide receiver, which he's transitioning to a tight end, so he's never played the position. And on top of it, tight end is one of the hardest positions to transition to in the NFL. If you ask most NFL players, they would say that's one of the harder ones to do, that and cornerback and quarterback. And I think it's a little unfair that you're asking him to do that. And after a couple of months of that experiment, you're willing to move off of it. Meanwhile, we had Tanner Connor here last year, who you didn't use him at all season, and yet you kept him on the roster. But again, Elijah Higgins, you could use him as a weapon. And I don't know what they're looking at. There's not many people I know in this community that are very knowledgeable. That's not just randos. There's a lot of people that agree with me and are I don't know what you saw from Tyler Kroft to keep him. I'm not really sure. It was a strange move. And yeah, Elijah Higgins got picked up, I believe, by the Cardinals. And I'm not, and again, it's not me saying he's going to be, George Kittle, but all I'm saying is, if you're keeping players on the team, I didn't necessarily love the move. And yeah, but anyway, he talked about the offensive line, and the offensive line at the end of the day, the only real issues I have right now, Connor Williams snapping. That's a significant issue. Teron, we know. I feel good with Kendall Lamb at backup. The Dan Feeney trade, which we can talk about a little, they trade him to the Bears for a 6th-round pick.
For a pick we're going to cut, probably.
yeah, exactly, right? So you got him for 6, which I was shocked. I don't know.
I could not believe that either.
I don't know how Chris Grier pulled that one off, but Liam Eichenberg is our backup center. I don't know how to feel about that. Not good, to be honest with you. So it's just a weird state to where, like, yeah, hopefully you don't have to rely on those guys. Connor Williams doesn't really deal with injuries. He's been pretty reliable for us. But yeah, just, those press conferences, again, he's not going to come out there and say, yeah, we're worried about our offensive line.
Yeah, this is what we thought we were going to. Yeah, that too. But he's not going to,
so
play of why he cut who.
Right. So take that as it is. But yeah, I definitely think that, definitely not a strength of our team. I was a little shocked at some of the moves of guys they got rid of and guys they kept. But, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. I mean, look, they're seeing a lot more than us. Obviously, we're not at camp every day. I'm not questioning their decisions, saying they're wrong and I would have done differently and I'm right. But more so just kind of surprised. I mean, and we'll go through it later. Like I want to talk about season outlook, and I'll just tease. I'm not even going to tease here because I think we'll just get rolling here and we won't be able to stop talking about it. But we'll table that for later in the show here. But last thing, kind of just about this whole week, and Grier mentioned this as well in his press conference. The Dolphins have traded Noah Igbenogany. No one has to learn how to pronounce his name anymore for Calvin Joseph. Much easier name to pronounce. But in the same boat as Noah Igbenogany, kind of a disappointing pick. He was second round, but only, I believe it was 11 picks after Noah, 2020 draft pick from the Cowboys. Does play more special teams than him, so that's, I think, part of the reason. And they mentioned him playing nickel, but we'll see. I'm not too optimistic. I think that's kind of just a trade. Both players needed a fresh start. Did get a little bit cheaper though, so that's at least some of the positives. But we'll see. Nothing to write home about with that trade.
It did get a little cheaper. I think both teams are just getting rid of their Noah Igbenogany, their equivalent of whatever it was, just giving guys a fresh start. I sat there and thought about how, I kind of digged in on Noah before, it's funny. It was kind of a roller coaster. I digged in on him saying he shouldn't make the roster. Then he starts playing well. And then he starts not playing well. And I think after the last preseason game, I said that I expect Eli Apple to start, which obviously now, it's not going to be Cam Smith. But Noah's a guy that has done everything the right way, and it's not his fault he got drafted at 30, right? He didn't choose where he was going to get drafted. I'm happy Joel Shad actually came out and spoke what a lot of people have been saying privately, but people want to say, oh, your sources, they're fake. But Noah Igbenogany was a Brian Flores pick. He was banging the table. Chris Grier wanted DeAndre Swift. Yeah, Chris Grier wanted DeAndre Swift, actually. That was his preferred running back, which is why we tried to trade for him this past draft. But Chris Grier and Josh Boyer wanted him. I think it's a little telling that 6 months into a new defensive coordinator and he's out the door. But he did everything the right way. Again, it's not his fault that he was drafted where he was, because that sets in the expectations. I think if he was a third-round pick, maybe like Channing Tindall, we're having a different conversation. But I hope the best for him in Dallas. And then as far as it saves us money. We needed special teams help. And another thing I want to kind of I want to kind of chill everyone out on the Chris Grier can't draft defensive backs, because Noah's really the only defensive back that hasn't worked out here. And I think that also is a little telling. You have Kader Kohu and you have Nick Needham, both undrafted free agents. Shout out to the Dolphins too. They have 13 free agents on their roster, which makes up a quarter of our team. We're once undrafted free agents. But again, you have Kader Kohu, Nick Needham, Perry Nickerson wasn't. I'm trying to think who the other, Elijah Campbell, which good news, he doesn't have to go on IR, and then Verone McKinley. So you have defensive backs here that are a bunch of them that are good contributors that were undrafted free agents. You drafted X, you drafted Javon Holland. Brandon Jones is good at what he's asked to do. So again, Noah just happened to be the one that didn't work out. So hopefully everything works off well with him, and you're actually able to get something out of it. I didn't think you'd be able to get anything. But you were able to get something because of that little bit he showed in preseason and camp. So hoping the best for him, and good trade for both sides.
the story of his career, unfortunately, with the Dolphins was like whenever he had like a bright spot, he just couldn't capitalize on that positive momentum and like channel it into consistency. Like he'd always have like the Steelers game, he had a pick, and it was like he's finally turned the corner. It felt like we're gonna start seeing something, and then just more inconsistency. But yeah, it was good. I honestly am shocked we got any asset in return for him, just because of, like you said, where he's drafted. Not his fault,
right
there.
Right.
But yeah, and then I think that anything else for that Grier said that caught your attention, or you want to move on to just kind of.
Real quick, I love the confidence he has in the roster. He mentioned how, even without a Jonathan Taylor, he thinks we're good enough to compete with any team. And I agree with him. I think there are a lot of ifs, but there's a lot of ifs with any roster. I don't like the whole, if Tua can stay healthy, if every starting quarterback, if Joe Burrow goes down, the Bengals are not going to be a good team. Right. So, and that's every team with a good quarterback. If that quarterback goes down, it's not good news. Right. So I think this roster can compete with anyone. I'm not a huge fan necessarily with Chris Sims and Mike Florio. I think they have some good stuff, but a lot of their stuff with the Dolphins is clearly biased because of the fan base and QAnon and how they. Right. But they brought up a good point. They did their AFC East predictions today, and they had the Dolphins winning the East. They had the Dolphins winning the East, followed by the Jets, followed by the Bills, followed by the Patriots. Now, I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but a lot of people recognize that this is a really good roster. And, I think a lot of people, including you were huge on this, and I got to give you your credit where, Jonathan Taylor almost was and I don't want to say it's never going to happen, but Jonathan Taylor almost was it might hurt us more than it might help us mindset, not necessarily on the field, but with contracts. We have a lot of good players, and we have a lot of good young players coming up. So I love that there's the confidence to where, again, Chris Grier was asked, he was like, how does this move now that you didn't get Jonathan Taylor? Where does that put you in the AFC? And he was like, I think we're just as good as everyone else. There's no reason why we couldn't beat the Chiefs or the Bengals or the Bills. And I love that mindset. And I think everyone on the team feels that way as well. So you love hearing that from Chris Grier. It's kind of a little bit of a slap on the back or pat on the back. He's like, yeah, I built this. So yeah,
it's funny you mentioned just Floria and Sims. Like I just messaged some of my other friends when he put out his predictions. I'm like, well, we might as well pack this season, and we're going to end up on freezing cold takes here. You can already see that's going to be there later in the season. But I agree with him. I mean, this roster is good enough. And then again, later we'll touch about like just concerns for the concerns and thoughts as in general for the season. But the roster is good enough. The roster did not take enough significant hits for us to be concerned from when preseason started, because the expectations coming into preseason were that this team is good enough to win a Super Bowl, and we're still there. We are banged up, but we're still here. We still got the core pieces intact for the most part, and I think there should still be optimism, definitely. And yeah, so I just kind of want to summarize the roster as a whole, rounding out the bottom. I thought it was interesting, the guys I kept, honestly, like we were talking about. I thought these might be guys you could get on the practice squad. Brandon Peely, and all these guys, I'm glad they made the team. Like, that's so awesome that they made an NFL roster. Like, credit to them. That's really, really hard to do. But yeah, Chris Brooks, Brandon Peely, rounding out the bottom of the roster, in my opinion. I thought they'd be practice squad guys, but credit to them. They showed more than enough in preseason. And like we said, if they had a 7th round or higher draft pick next to their name, they'd be automatically on the roster. They look that good. But here they are. And yeah, so what are your thoughts just about the roster as a whole? How did it round out in your mind?
I thought you brought up a lot of great points. I'm really happy Chris Brooks made the roster. I was, again, like you, I was like, oh, wow, they didn't keep him, but they kept this guy, or there was a little bit of that, and that happens every year. Overall, though, I'm looking at my 53 right now, and I'm trying to think the names that I got wrong. Again, Robbie Chosen, I expected to be cut I have him highlighted because I thought, and he still could get brought back because of guys going on IR.
Honestly.
Yeah. So who knows? But I had mentioned I was hearing from a lot of people like Robbie Chosen probably won't make this roster. So again, Chris Brooks was the only thing I got wrong there. So right now we currently have 5 guys, 5 running backs. Wide receiver wise, got all those right. Offensive line, the only one was really Dan Feeney, and I don't think anyone could have predicted that trade. And then they kept Keon Smith, which if it was me, it would have been Ryan Hayes. But if they have a feeling on Keon Smith, then you keep him. And then you look on the defense, and I'm trying to look at names again. Noah was traded, so couldn't have predicted that. Deshaun Hand, I expected to get cut. Mitchell Gude and Aubrey Miller, I expected to be cut. I don't know. Are they on our practice squad? I'm not 100%.
Do a quick search here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if Aubrey Miller is. I'll be sad if he's not, because I thought he could have been on the 53. But yeah, I mean, I pretty much the whole entire 53 I got correct. There only was one thing that on the defense that was wrong, and it was Elijah Campbell doesn't need to go on IR, which that's not necessarily wrong. It's more so just I thought he was significantly injured. But there wasn't many things.
Made the practice squad actually.
Okay, so Aubrey Miller's on the practice squad.
No, did not. Aubrey Miller or Mitchell Gude, not so far. They've signed 8 players, I believe. The total I want to say is 15 or 13, but so far they only signed 8 guys. So I don't think that they're on there yet.
Yeah, see, they might be. Again, I don't know how this works if they need to do contracts, but
16 names, so there's still 8 available.
Right. So I would expect him to be one. I was hearing people say that he was really high. The coaching staff was really high on him, and he could make the 53. So, I wouldn't have been mad at that. I think that he deserved to definitely be on practice squad, but possibly 53. But yeah, overall, wasn't really shocked with anything. The Chris Brooks thing, I'm happy it happened. I was shocked, but not in a bad way. But other than that, I mean, it was pretty much exactly what you and I listed out, maybe aside from 1 or 2 names. But, we were about like 50 for 53, which that's pretty dang good. So, yeah, nothing really more to add on that.
Yeah. And then, so I'll just touch on the injury report. And Chris Grier alluded to it. He said he expects Jalen Ramsey to be back during the season. Don't think that's a surprise to anyone. We'll see down the road if for some reason that we're out of it, maybe that changes the story. But yeah, I expect him to play. Kean Crossan, I know he suffered a freak injury. I don't know what that freak injury was yet. I haven't been able to find that, but that's a shame. That's already a position that has been dropping like flies, and it's getting thinner by the day here. It really does seem. So that sucks. That sucks that he's going to be on IR the whole season.
Yeah. Jalen Ramsey, I expect him to be back after the bye week. Elijah Campbell was surprising to me. That's a great news that he does not have to go on IR. Nick Needham, they're not taking off PUP, I don't think.
No, I believe he was still on it as of
So right, and that's something Alf from 3 Yards Per Carry has been on since he started going to camp. He was like, yeah, he's pretty far away. He's not going to be back at the start of the season. But yeah, a shame with Keon Crossan. But again, that's why you make the trade with the Noah Igbenogany. Not that they predicted that happening, but it gives you flexibility. Now you got a guy who can help on special teams. But yeah, injury report, I think I said this maybe a couple of episodes ago that there's no significant injury on the roster other than Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah.
Robert Jones is a little more significant. Yeah, but he'll be back. Robert Jones will probably be back as soon as he's eligible after 4 weeks. But aside from Jalen Ramsey, everyone on this roster is going to be good to go week 1.
Yeah, I think as far as Cam Smith and Devon A-Chain are some players that did kind of get dinged up in preseason. I think they're going to be ready to go week 1. How much usage they see, that's a different story. But I expect them to be rest on the sideline.
But they can suit up. Yeah, they can suit up if they needed to. They might not need them because, again, your active roster is not 53 people. So they might be inactive, but again, there's no significant injury as far as needing to go on IR other than Jalen and Robert Jones. So,
all right. And yeah, so then let's talk about kind of just the season outlook, how it's changed. I mean, it's been a lot has happened since we started before the preseason started and kind of gave our thoughts for the season. I kind of want to just mention like what I want to do, and I didn't prep you with this, so it's going to be interesting to just hear your kind of off the cuff thoughts, and I'll share mine first here. But these are going to be my biggest concerns for the season, like where this team, if the season sort of gets derailed early, at least now, it'd be why. And then as well, biggest surprises, like some candidates you have to shock kind of the NFL with what we're going to do for the season. So I'll just start with my surprises, because everyone likes to hear those first. I think the biggest surprise for the season, and we've been talking about it all lead up to the season, is how good this defense is going to be, how much improved it's going to be under Vic Fangio. I think that's going to take the league by storm. Like I could see it where they're just talking about how much better this defense is all the time on ESPN and everywhere. Like the Dolphins defense are doing so many unique concepts, this, that, and the other. Because Fangio said, like, he wanted to get back in here. He's ready. He's been cooking up some stuff. So I expect him to come out and just shock everyone with how much improved this this defense is. And then nextly, David Long. I think David Long is going to be like a front runner for MVP of the team, of the defense, like outside of obviously like Tua would be the MVP, but Tyreek Hill. But I think he's going to be an unsung hero and just make the team so much better and be the signing of the offseason. And then lastly, I have here just the next stage of this offense. Like I think Mike McDaniel is one of the smartest guys currently in the NFL calling plays. And I think he's got a lot of room to grow this offense. Like he's going to learn from his mistakes and completely just like how we were the first few weeks of the season where no one had an answer for Tyreek and Waddle. I think that's how it's going to be to start. And then obviously teams are going to adjust, but then I think he's going to come back with more adjustments. He's learned that, there are answers to what he's throwing out there. But I just think there's going to be some new wrinkles to this offense here that is going to totally change the game. And then last thing, I just thought of this now, but something I'm interested to see is what's the new 4th and short play? I don't think we could do the Alec Ingold motion under center anymore. I think people, are going to be aware of that and key on it. And it doesn't seem like they want to do a QB sneak. So it's got to be something. I'm excited to see what he's got there for that. What about you? You got anything you're looking forward to?
Yeah, my two surprises, I'll give one for offense and one for defense. My defensive surprise that I think people are going to be shocked by is just like you said. I think that the defense is going to carry this team this year, and I'll go as far to say that I think a lot of people expect it to be good, but because our offense was as good as it was last year when firing all cylinders and Tua was out there on the field, I think a lot of people just assume that it's going to carry the team. But, I would argue that, the reason it was so significant last year was because our defense was, again, it was a bottom 8 defense. It was the last quarter it was bottom 25%. And I think that not only is your defense going to be good this year, but I think it's actually going to carry you. And I think that Mike McDaniel, as a young head coach, being able to rely on a good defense, that's going to take a lot of pressure off of him. It's going to take a lot of pressure off of Tua and the offense. And then going to the offense, I actually don't expect the offense to be as flashy this year. And I think that's a great thing. I think that's going to catch a lot of people by surprise. I don't think necessarily you're going to see these crazy huge chunk plays like you saw last year. I would love to see it, but I think defenses are going to figure it out. And I think that Tua this year, it's going to be a lot just quick, decisive, get the ball out to your running backs, tight ends, quick passes, obviously with Jalen Waddle. I don't think it's going to be as crazy explosive as last year. I think it's going to be a lot more methodical, a lot more like we saw against the Houston Texans, or was that, I'm trying to think. Yeah, it was the Houston Texans, right? Not the Falcons, where they just drove down the field. It was like 90. Yeah, it was Texans. It's going to be a lot more like that, where there's not really one huge play. I know against the Jaguars, there was that one play to Tyreek. You might see explosive plays like that. Obviously just guys with the ball in their hands just doing crazy because it's Tyreek and Jalen. But ultimately, I think it's going to be a lot more methodical. I think you're going to see more of a reliance on the run game. I think you're going to see, more of a use of screen passes, quick passes, getting the ball out to his hand. I think he's shown a lot better of a job recognizing blitzes in training camp and in, just recognizing pressure in the preseason. So I think actually a couple surprises is you're going to see a more balanced team. I don't think you're going to see this crazy, like, oh my God, the Dolphins are just fireworks on offense. I think it's more so going to be kind of like Kansas City was last year. And what I mean by that is if you watch Kansas City in years past with Tyreek Hill, it was very bombs away, like deep shots like crazy. And that's kind of what the Dolphins were last year, where, it may have not been deep shots all the time, but it was crazy fireworks. Whereas last year was more like, okay, they're just kind of like impossible to guard because like it's just like 2-yard pass, Tyreek takes it 20. Little pass to the running back right before you thought you were going to sack 2. He throws it out to, Raheem Mostert or Savon Ahmed, and he takes it 10, 15. Pass to Durham Smythe because no one's expecting him to catch the ball. Again, you got an actual slot wide receiver now with Braxton Berrios, so you can use him on those plays where Tyreek and Jalen are covered. He'll find the soft spots in coverage. So I think you're going to see a less explosive offense. That doesn't mean bad. It just means I don't think it's going to be as gimmicky, if that makes sense, as reliant on those big plays. And then defensively, I think they're going to carry the team, honestly.
Yeah. So then here's what I have as my biggest concerns. And these aren't like everyone's biggest concern is definitely obviously health. And I think obviously that's fair, but I'm kind of more going outside the box here, trying to give some more people some options for what to be looking for. So this is more so just because I haven't seen it yet, but the safety opposite Javon Holland, I've question marks as far as that goes. There was an interesting clip I saw from our safeties coach, and his name is blanking me here. I believe it's like Ronaldo Hill or something, but I don't quote me on that. But anyways, he basically was like, I think we need to improve at safety. Like these guys, no one's shown enough to take the position. So I have question marks as far as safety goes. And secondary as a whole, there's questions, but that's more injury wise. If this secondary was healthy, I would not be as concerned. And then depth as a whole. We're already seeing it in preseason. Injuries are going to happen. And I think this team is very thin. I think if you have to start going to the reserves, it could get ugly in some positions. The drop-offs could be significant, and that does scare me. That's not going to come out week 1 or 2, but as the season goes on, it's a war of attrition, honestly. Like usually the best team, like the past 2 years, it has been, or a few years, it has been the Chiefs or the Rams. But usually it's the team that gets healthy at the right time goes on a run. So can we get lucky in that, and can the depth guys do enough for when the guys aren't healthy that we are in a position to go deep? But then lastly, this is kind of the thing. The margins are so thin in the NFL. So what I'm concerned about is really just like the in-game management and special teams. Like last year we had a kick return, which is just inexcusable, as we've been saying. Like those are the stuff that add up after at the end of the season, like just your win probability and whatnot. As you look at it as a whole, those are stuff that people forget, but they are so key. Like anything you could do to just give yourself the best chance to win, you need to do it. And silly mistakes on special teams, missing field goals, or not calling a timeout at the right time, not burning your timeouts correctly, not going for it on 4th down, not getting 4th downs, just little stuff like that. I think that really will make the difference, especially when going for a Super Bowl. Like that is the truly the difference between the winning a Super Bowl and not. It's the finest of margins, and that's the game we play in the NFL. But at the end of the day, it's a bunch of coin flips, and you gotta make the right decisions here. But what about you?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you just said. The first thing I would say, the run defense, not necessarily because of the guys at the top, but the depth, like you were saying, I just worry when you're, in a game and you're tired and you bring in these guys that, the Brandon Pillies, I don't know if they're going to add maybe someone else, but you bring in those type of guys and I worry about, is what Jacksonville did just going to happen again, where they're just going to run it right down your throat. That's my main concern for defense. Offensively, I don't really have many concerns for offense. Again, like you, I'm not going to say Tua getting injured or injuries because every fan's biggest concern is injuries and their quarterback getting hurt. So I'm not going to put that on there. That's a given. Really, offensively, I would have to go to Mike McDaniel. Can he, not necessarily game clock management, because I think that will get better, but can he be more patient with the running game? Because I don't think that a lot needs to change with the running game. I think you just need to be more reliant on it and more willing to and more patient with it is what I should say. So, that would be my biggest concern or thing that I'm waiting to see, because we saw it in preseason, but that's preseason. And in the heat of the moment, when maybe your offense is doing really well and you need to start running the football more, will Mike McDaniel have the patience and the discipline to actually run the football, and can they actually rely on it? And then other than that, special teams, Jake Bailey, we saw him in the preseason. I know I said this before the Houston game, and I'll say it every week. Jake Bailey should be doing your kickoffs, because every time he kicks the ball off, he's got like an iron leg, because every time he kicked the ball off, it was going like 5 yards past the end zone every single time. So again, I understand the rules are, you can fair catch at any time. And yes, I know sometimes if you have the perfect coverage, you can get these guys down inside the 25, inside the 20. But is the risk of them returning a touchdown worth that extra 5 yards? I don't think it is. On punt return, same thing. So yeah, special teams is probably honestly my number one concern, including Jason Sanders. And after that, I would say it's Mike McDaniel's willingness to run the football, and then our run defense. Those would be my three, not concerns, but areas that I'll definitely be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, and honestly, I truly think these first few games will know what this team is. Obviously, barring catastrophe at certain positions, but yeah, I think we'll get a good look, because the Chargers they should be a lot better on offense. I think they were kind of handcuffed last year, and they're going to really let Justin Herbert go here. And then against a team like the Patriots, who is down, you should be able to handily get out of there with a win in convincing fashion. And then same thing, deal with the Broncos. Your first game at home, I'd like to see them just take care of business. And if they do that, the first 3 games, and then against Buffalo, there'll be a lot of optimism, but at least we'll know that like we will be able to handle the games that you should win. The Chargers is obviously a lot closer, but those 2 games, the New England and Denver game, those are games you got to win if you're going to do anything significant this year. But then, yeah, speaking about Buffalo, I kind of just want to do a quick zoom around the AFC and just general thoughts. I said it with New England. I think they're going to have a down year, even though they should be improved in offense. They actually have an offensive coordinator this year. I don't.
They got rid of all their quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think they've signed them both back to the practice squad. But
I don't know what that's about.
I don't know either. That's like he's like still thinks he's outsmarting the league at every turn. I'm surprised no one picked up Bailey Zappi, to be honest with you. But a lot of teams were like cutting their backup quarterbacks recently. I don't know if that's because of just the new emergency quarterback rules or what, but that was a little strange to me. I think the Patriots should finish squarely in 4th place, and I could see them being around 500 just because it is the Patriots, and they're not going to win enough games where they should be a threat to this division. And then for the Jets, expectations are high, but the bigger they are, the harder they fall. I expect the Jets could have a rough year. I'll leave it at that. And if we want to touch on the Jets more, we can. But then Buffalo, honestly, I think you have a different opinion than me about Buffalo, but they were the best team, at least the pick. And they were one of the best teams the past 2 years. And they just suffered, obviously, a giant tragedy with DeMar Hamlin that I think kind of got them off the rails in the season. But I expect them to be really good again. And I think they're going to surprise some people. People will be like, damn, we forgot how good the Bills were. And I think they're going to show it here, especially week 1. I think they're going to beat the crap out of the Jets week 1 and show everyone that they haven't gone anywhere. They're still a Super Bowl contender. But I still am really optimistic about where we stand. What about you?
I think so. As far as the AFC East, I think it is the best division in football. I'm trying to think of other ones. The AFC West.
The AFC North, I think, might be the only other division that.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I think the AFC North and the AFC East. Other than that, I don't think there's a division. Every division that I think of has at least 2 teams that are like, eh. And I think that's the Patriots. I think that in our division, I think the Patriots are going to be 2. So I feel overall maybe the same way as you do in the division, but in, maybe actually, no, I'm trying to think about it. I think we actually maybe feel a little different about the AFC. I still think the Dolphins are going to be finishing at worst second. But let me share my thoughts. So I think the Patriots are going to finish in 4th like you do. I think the Patriots are going to be a lot better than last year. I would not be shocked at all if the Patriots were a 10-win team that didn't make the playoffs and they were 4th in our division, just because of how good our division is and how good the AFC East is. I think that their defense is always going to be well coached. I worry about the firepower they have. But I'm not saying they will be a 10-win team, but I think 8-9, 9-8, not like atrocious, not like 6-11 or, whatever, 7-10, but I think they'll be around 500. Always kind of just like they're there, kind of like the Steelers have been the last couple of years where they're good, but you're like, I don't know. The Buffalo Bills, I'm a lot lower on than I thought I was. And I thought I was crazy for a while. And I think I am actually, because Chris Sims and Mike Florio kind of spoke about this and, they have certain takes, but I don't. I think that, this is the first year I'm going into it where I'm not really scared of the Bills. My brother and my dad are Steelers fans, and I watched the preseason game of the Bills versus Steelers. And I know it's only preseason, but the Bills starters, all of them, every single starter on defense and offense was out there, and they were losing 14-0 after a quarter against the Steelers. I mean, they were just getting dominated on both sides of the ball at the line of scrimmage. Josh Allen was running for his life. Their offensive line looked terrible. And I just think that with all the stuff that's been going on with Stephon Diggs and they got rid of Leslie Frazier, I just think it's a lot. And, I think that last year for a lot of teams in the AFC East, for the Jets and for the Dolphins was oh, wait, you're not the bullies of the AFC East. We each beat you one time. And the Dolphins, I'm telling you, the Dolphins being able, think about this. The Dolphins lost 2 games against them last year, the playoffs then in Buffalo, by a total of 6 points. Each game was 3 points. There was 3 points in the playoff game. And when we played them in Buffalo, people forget this, it was a walk-off field goal. If they would have missed it, it would have gone to overtime. And one of those games was with our 3rd-string quarterback, who was a rookie 7th-round pick. And I think that does something for you as a team. I think that changes your mindset. I said this, once the Dolphins were able to beat the Bills once or compete with them and not get our asses whooped every week, then that's when you're going to see the switch. And I think last year that's what it was. And I just, again, the Bills roster doesn't really impress me at all. Their offensive line's not that good. Their running backs aren't that good. Their tight end, I like Dalton Kincaid, so I'll give him that. Wide receivers, they have Stephon Diggs, so okay. But other than that, there's no threat. Josh Allen is a dude, so I understand that. But they don't run the football. They don't have a running game. And then I've heard from many people that Sean McDermott is not a good defensive coordinator. So the whole thing that happened with Leslie Frazier was in the playoff game against the Chiefs, Sean McDermott took away Leslie Frazier's play calling responsibilities at the very end of the game when the Chiefs went down in like 13 seconds, right? Then it was like, wait, how did your defense crumble? Well, because Sean McDermott was calling plays and their defense was getting torched. They lost Tremaine Edmonds, who I think is a great player. They don't really have many studs at the front of their line. Von Miller's old and he's not playing the first 4 games. Tre'Davious White took a drop off last year and he's getting older, and Jordan Poyer's older. So I think their roster is just underwhelming. I think because they have Josh Allen, people think they're really better than they are. But I think clearly they're the 3rd best roster in the division. And now that you have a competent defense with the Dolphins and you have Aaron Rodgers, who's a competent quarterback, I think that changes things for the landscape. So I don't know where the Bills are going to finish. I wouldn't be shocked if they finish first, but at the same time, I don't think it's going to be like they're 5 games ahead of the rest of the division. I think it's going to be like whoever wins the division, whether it's the Dolphins, the Jets, the Bills, it's going to be by 1, maybe 2 games at max. The Jets, as far as the Jets, real quick, because I've been rambling on. I think they're going to be a good team.
One thing real quick about the Bills is just like how you said that we lost them by a combined 6 points, and the regular season game in Buffalo, 100% agree with you. But the playoff game and the game in Miami, I mean, you look at the yardage in that game, they outgained us by like 200-300 yards. They just in the red zone twice, like Josh Allen skipped the ball for a wide open. I believe it was, I don't even know who the hell their running back is, I'll be honest, but wide open in the end zone. So they could have easily won that game also. And then some just unlucky. We returned a punt for a touchdown, and like Josh Allen slipped, and Christian Wilkins got a touchdown. Like, but that's all I just wanted to say. Like, it's just a lot happens in a year, and you forget.
No, I understand. Well, I think the main thing is I just don't view them as like the big bad bullies of the AFC East anymore. I think we're there with them. We are just as good. And again, I think we'll split the games. I think they'll probably lose to the Bills when they play them in Buffalo, but I'm having them split it. And, I just don't think that there's a clear winner or there's a clear difference between them and the Dolphins as far as like, oh, they're so much better than us. I don't. I think we're right there neck and neck with them. And if anything, I'm going to give the roster the fact that we have a competent defensive coordinator, and talent-wise, I'm going to give it to the Dolphins. Now, as far as the Jets, I don't know. I could see them being really good. Their defense looked good. Their offensive line looks horrible, though. And I worry about Aaron Rodgers with his mobility at that age, with an offensive line that bad. I mean, again, the first couple of weeks, they got some. I mean, let me just read real quick.
Yeah, that first 6 games
the Jets schedule. I know it's going to be a little longer, but let me just look at these defensive lines. Buffalo, Dallas, New England. I don't know, Kansas City. It might not be that great because Aaron Jones. Denver, who has a great defense, and Philadelphia. Like, that is brutal. Especially, again, you're starting off Buffalo, Dallas, New England, and then the Chiefs, even though they don't necessarily have the greatest defense, they're the Chiefs. So it's like I could see I could see them starting off like 1-6 or 1-5, whatever it is. Like, I could see them losing all of those games except maybe the Patriots and the Broncos, maybe walking out like 2-4. That's not a great start to your season. But I could also see them right. But I could also see them playing really well. They have a good defense. Even though Sauce holds all the time, they still have a good defense. Aaron Rodgers is still a top 12, top 10 quarterback in the NFL. So who knows? I'm not really sure. And then with the Dolphins, again, like we talked about, I think the Dolphins are clearly the best roster in the division. And that's without Jalen. And then once you get Jalen back, it's like, well, they're the clear best roster in the division. So, we'll see. I just think that this year, me personally as a fan, I'm not scared of the Bills. Like in past years where, we'd go into the game and I was like, God, just please let's not lose like 35-0 like last time. Now I walk into it thinking, yeah, we could win in Buffalo week 4. Why not? Like, why couldn't we? It's not if Tua is healthy and our defense is showing that it's good and it's not giving up big plays, which has been the Achilles heel of that Josh Boyer, Brian Flores defense. Why couldn't we beat them? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And then, I'll just say about the Jets. Yeah, I think there's a lot more possibilities, and part of it's schedule based, where that team could unravel quickly. And in New York, if it starts unraveling, it could get ugly, especially if the media starts getting on Rodgers and Nate Hackett and Salah and everything. It could get ugly. I do see why people think they could have a great season though as well. I could be totally wrong, but I just think that it's more likely that it unravels in hilarious fashion than not. But yeah, so as far as we go here, next week, or not next week, but next episode we'll be doing here, we'll be taking a look at our week 1 matchup and breaking down what we think the game will be, what we see out of the Chargers and the Dolphins, what we'll be looking forward to. And yeah, I mean, it's here, guys. It's here. Get excited. It's Dolphin season, baby. But from us here at Dolphins versus the World, from me, Anthony, Joel, thank you guys so much for the support. Thank you all for listening. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and thank you for the support, guys. Fins up.